Hello, so I've made a Treecapitator script and I just thought I'd walk you through how the code works. So first, I'll show off the script. There is an animation that plays when you break logs, and it works for all kinds of trees. So normal ones. It also works, well, it also doesn't work for houses, so if I go to a village and I break blocks, then it doesn't work. So if we go over to the code, there's about 84 lines, so it's not that big. I'll start with, so on break, if the event isn't cancelled, which will prevent the Treecapitator running, like if you break spawn or something, then first it checks if the player is holding an axe. So if I punch a tree, nothing happens. I've got to use an axe. Then this checks if a Treecapitator is currently breaking a tree. So if player is not currently breaking a tree, so they can't break two at once. Like if I break that and then quickly break that, it doesn't work. I have to wait until it finishes. Then if the broken block was a log, which I'll just show this function here. First it checks if the block is tagged with Minecraft logs, and then stripped logs are, but I didn't want to break those, so I just checked if it's a stripped log here, and if it is, I return false, otherwise I return true. And for some reason, mangrove roots are not considered logs, so I just got an additional check in there for them. Then I decide the amount of blocks I want to break, so by default, it breaks 100 blocks, but if there's less durability in the player's tool, then it doesn't break as many. So if you broke a tree with only 2 durability, it would only break 2 logs before breaking your axe. And then it calls this function, which runs the Treecapitator. So if we go up here, first there's a list of blocks that it needs to visit, and it adds a broken block to that list. And we're also counting the number of leaves, so we start that off at 0. So while there is a block inside this to visit list, we'll remove the first element from the list, and then we'll add it to the visited list, because we're visiting it now. So if the size of visited is more than the maximum blocks, then we'll exit, because that means we've broken the maximum number of blocks. So we would skip down to here. Well, we've not actually broken any blocks at this point. We're just getting a list of blocks to break. And then we'll loop all the blocks in radius 2 of the current block. And then if the loop block is leaves, then we'll add 1 to that counter and then continue to the next iteration. If the loop block is logs and we haven't already visited it, and we've not queued to visit it, then we'll add it to visit, which means we'll visit it later. And this will just get all the logs around the broken block, and it stores all the locations in this visited list. So if there's less leaves than required leaves, which is 10, I just exit, because that means it wasn't a tree that was broken. So there does need to be at least 10 leaves around a block, so if I had this, it would not break. But if I placed a lot of leaves around it, then it does break. Then we set this variable to the player's tool, which just stores what tool they used, so that if they switch tools while the Treecapitator is running, then it stops, and that doesn't work in creative mode. So if I switch, then it says you switched tools, which prevented it from breaking. And that just means that if a player breaks a block and then switches, they can't break the tree without using durability. Because it does use the durability. So I've got 1558 there. If I break that, then I've got 1552. So this visited is the list of blocks that we're going to break. First, we check if the same tool is being held. So we store what tool the player is currently holding. And then we need to change the durability of this variable because the player's tool isn't equal to what we stored if the durability has changed. We just need to make sure the durability is the same before we compare them. And then if the tool has changed, which is this statement here, then if the player is in creative, then that's okay, we don't care. But if they're not in creative, then we'll send a message, play this sound, and then exit the loop, which stops breaking the tree. Otherwise, we call player.breakBlock. This acts as if the player broke the block manually. It is part of skript-reflect. So as you can see up here, we require skript-reflect, which is an add-on. Skript-reflect is a bit slow, so it's not ideal to use, but there was only really one add-on which had a function for making the player break a block. It's called Treecapitator, but it's only got 89 downloads, and it's not been updated in like 6 months, so I decided not to use it. Yeah, and then we play the blockwood break sound, because that doesn't play if you just call the break block. And then we'll wait 2 ticks. That's just so we've got an animation. But if I just commented that out, and then go over here, there's no animation anymore. And then once they're done breaking the tree, then we just delete the variable so that they can break another one. This is an in-memory variable, so if it starts with an dash, then it doesn't get saved. There is an option that you need to set in the script's config for this to work. I think by default it is set to false, so this would just be a normal variable. So because of that, I just make sure to delete it in case they're disabled in the config. Yeah, also I have a function to check if the block is leaves, which just checks if it's got the leaves tag. I've got this function, which I don't actually use. So that's a bit useless. And then I've got some options up here for configuring the script. You might wonder why the animation just breaks random blocks, so like it doesn't go in any particular order, which doesn't look the best, I'll admit that. The reason for that is it's just hard to sort lists in Skript. So we would need to sort the visited list by the distance to the broken block, and then break them in that order, and there isn't really good functions to do that, so I just didn't implement that. Okay, thanks for watching. Remember to subscribe.